Hello, this is Andrew Smith from Yuppiechef. This is a new technology, and we're all kind of getting used to it and figuring out how it works. I think the organizers have done it really well. I've learned on Zoom calls that if you tell a joke and your whole audience is muted, it sounds like you've really bombed. So I'm going to try and just keep it simple and not do a normal type of humor thing. Ryan's talk is excellent. He really is the expert in the South African e-commerce space, been going for a very long time. My talk is going to be a bit different to that. I'm going to talk much more about the Yuppiechef story and kind of the background, but also wanted to set a bit of context with where we are right now, as in April the 28th in South Africa, and to say this has been possibly the hardest 5 weeks of business life for me. The day before lockdown, Thursday at the end of March, we kind of announced that we were going to be trading during lockdown, and then we kind of realized that we probably couldn't, and so we opened on that Friday of the lockdown, and we made no sales on that day. And it was like suddenly the oxygen had been turned off. And Yuppiechef is a 14-year journey for us. And what went through our minds is this it? Is it over? We're probably considered a medium-sized business, and we are not going to be able to survive if we can't carry on trading. And so I think that I just want to kind of set the tone here as to say, I think I can't see the people on this call, but I know there's a large number of people who are probably confused and optimistic and maybe depressed and maybe scared. And I think that we're all in that same boat together. And I certainly have been, and I've given myself permission to feel all of those things at the same time, to not feel like I can only be upset or unhappy, or that I have to be optimistic or excited about the future, that I can be both things at once. And so that's the kind of background that I wanted to give as I'm going to telling the Yuppiechef story. I've told this story many, many times over the years, but I never told it in this context, the context of where we are right now. And this is really not about giving advice or giving some sort of general lessons for how to start businesses online, or I'm not actually going to talk anything about the tech involved in Yuppiechef. I want to talk more, I guess, sort of story-wise and philosophically, and I'm going to try and cover three things, or at least I hope three things come out in what I'm saying. Firstly is that Yuppiechef didn't feel like a good idea in the beginning. So if you're sitting there kind of wondering whether maybe your idea is good or not, whatever stage you're on your journey, Yuppiechef certainly didn't feel like a good idea. So that's point number one. Point number two is that it took a whole lot longer than we thought it was going to. It certainly wasn't an overnight success. And the third point is that what has ended up becoming our unique selling point, or our strategic advantage, was not so obvious up front. It sort of more emerged after we decided to start. So those are the 3 points that I'm going to try and cover in the story. It didn't feel like a good idea. It took longer than we thought. And thirdly, our kind of unique selling point or our strategy emerged over time. So our context, our background, Shane Dryden and myself were the founders of Yuppiechef, and we were working together, and we were doing marketing, online marketing and technology for other people, other companies. We were building websites for them. We were doing online marketing, and we wanted to do this for ourselves. We wanted to stop selling our time by the hour and start selling a product. We had this idea of, waking up on a Monday morning and checking the bank account and realizing, like, wow, look at all this money we made, and we didn't necessarily sell any of our own time. And a lot of people have that idea, but they don't necessarily do anything about it. So we thought the way to do it was to just do it in a type of event. So we got together, there were 4 of us at the time, we got together for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we said at the end of the Saturday, we are going to have an e-commerce site. We're going to be selling something online. And what emerged from that was Bug Zapper, which was a fly and mosquito zapping racket that we knew how to get hold of. We didn't make the product, but we thought we were going to sell this online as something that people might want to sell online. So we created the website, and we figured out how to ship it and what the packaging would look like and how to take payments. And on the Saturday, we made it live, and we made one sale to my mom. Because when you launch something online, there is absolutely nobody who knows that it exists other than maybe your mom, who you tell about. But it wasn't a failure. After that, it did build some momentum, and And the next couple of years, we ended up selling thousands of bug zappers online, because it was the type of product that people didn't necessarily know where to get it. And if they saw it online, or they saw it at a friend's house or something, they would kind of go online and search for it. So that we thought was going to be something that could work, is that if we found products that people wanted, but they didn't necessarily know where to get them. Because certainly in 2005, e-commerce was not mainstream. It wasn't, if you knew where to get a product in the physical world, you would go and do it. You'd only order online if you didn't know where to get it. And the exception to that was probably books and DVDs and games, and they've always been the first things that people buy and sell online. You know, Amazon internationally, and here Kalahari in the old days, because if you buy the Harry Potter novel, you know when it arrives, it's going to be what you expected. It's not going to be the wrong color or the wrong size or whatever it is. It will be what it is, and so that works quite well. And it also works well because of the long tail that's possible. You know, books and DVDs have got thousands and thousands of different options, and you can't fit that all into one store, so that really works online. So we were trying to find those type of ideas as well, things that people knew what they wanted, but they couldn't get them somewhere else. So the next thing we started was selling flags. We sold country flags and flag poles, and with the idea that if you needed a Norwegian flag because someone was coming to visit you from another company overseas and you want to fly your flag, where do you go and get that from? Where in the physical world do you go buy a country flag? And it's the type of thing that you might Google and search and get delivered to you. And so we had a few of these sites going. And in 2006, Shane came up with the idea for selling kitchen tools. And we thought, well, if we go to a friend that we know who's a chef and we say to her, what things do chefs use in their kitchen that ordinary people can't get hold of? And so we'll sell those online. And then people will be able to buy them. And the reason they'll buy them is because they can't get them somewhere else. And she said to us, you know, well, chefs actually use the same things that everyone else uses, and they get lost and stolen. And so there's nothing necessarily special about them. But I've got these tongs, and they have nylon ends, which means you can use them in non-stick pans, but you can't get them in South Africa. And so if you could sell these online, you know, these would really work. And we looked at those tongs, and they were called QZ Pro. And we actually knew the person who were importing them into South Africa. But you couldn't get them very widely because they're, you know, physical stores have only got certain brands that they can sell, and there's a lot more than that's available. And so online worked for that. So we start working on this idea, and Shane goes away on holiday, and he comes back and he says, I've got it, the name, Yuppiechef. And that was a bit weird, and Yuppie's a word that no one had really used for a long time, and went and looked for the domain name, and yuppiechef.com was taken. And I said, you know, Shane, well, bad luck. You know, obviously we have to try and find a different name. He was like, no, this is it. It came to me in a moment of inspiration, the color and the name and everything. So we emailed the person who owned Yuppiechef.com and said, you know, you don't seem to be using it, and would you like to sell it? And we didn't hear back from them. And a couple of weeks later, we just happened to be looking online, and Shane typed in Yuppiechef.com, and whoever owned it had let it expire. And so we bought it for $9, and that's how we got onto the name, a moment of luck. And this idea of Yuppiechef is that people don't necessarily have to be chefs, but they want tools at home that they can use. We worked evenings, and we were working during the day on other things, and it took months to go live. We hadn't bonded our homes and hired a bunch of people and raised a bunch of venture capital to do this. It was something that we were just doing ourselves when we could, in the time that we could find and we could have. And this is one of my what Point was saying about that it wasn't necessarily automatically a good idea. You know, the idea that entrepreneurs or people come up with groundbreaking ideas, and then they see it, and it's so inspiring that the next day they go out and do it, and everything works. I think at one stage I remember saying to Shane, you know, we need to choose something. So let's drop Yuppiechef and let's focus on flags. Flags are the things that people are buying at the moment. But luckily we did stick with what we were doing, and we kept on going. We launched in August of 2006, and the first sale was to Shane's dad, and once again that had happened. And we made 8 sales in 2006 between August and the end of the year. And one was to another family member and a friend that we knew. And eventually in November, we made a sale, and it was someone who we didn't know. Her name was Denise. And I said to Shane, do you know Denise? And I don't know Denise. And, you know, who is this person? And we hand wrote a card out of gratitude, really, saying, you know, thank you for shopping with us. Thank you for for risking transferring money. I think it was, we only had EFT facilities at that time, into a stranger's bank account and trusting that this thing is going to arrive on your door. And what maybe we take for granted today, sitting here in 2020, realizing that it's quite a thing to trust a new brand online and to transfer money to someone you don't know. And so we really wanted to show some sort of gratitude in that. And so we hand wrote a letter to, and we've written nearly 1 million handwritten letters in that time to customers. Just about every box, or at least every customer, will get a card from us saying mostly thank you for trusting us, and also being handwritten, showing there is a human on the other side of the internet. It's not some robotic arm that's picking something off a shelf and dropping it at a conveyor belt. There really are people here, and if something goes wrong, you'll be able to contact us. You'll be able to speak to a human on the other side. And I don't suggest that everyone handwrites cards. I don't think that that's necessarily practical or feasible, but it is something which has certainly worked for us to show the human side of the internet and how it is possible to bring some of those things across. We worked from our home for a long time and moved to an office after a while. And we hired a PR company. And we said to this PR company, you know, we would like to grow a little bit quicker, and can you get something out there into the world? And they got us a feature in Die Burger, and that's quite a big newspaper here in the Western Cape, and it was going to come out on the Saturday, and we'd seen what it was going to say, and it was kind of something along the lines of, you know, Yuppiechef is this hot new thing. And we actually phoned our hosting company that hosts our websites and tell them to get ready. You know, is there anything you can do, because the traffic is going to be off the charts. And of course, the Saturday came, and you know what I'm going to say is nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. In fact, if you track the sales and the traffic on the website the week after the article came out and you compared it to the week before it came out, there was no difference. And that was obviously very disheartening. And we continued to get other media coverage and things, and it didn't seem, no single event seemed to make any difference. But over time, the trend was upwards. And that's something which I think we took some courage from, is that there is no magic bullet. There's no one thing that was going to come along and just turn our business around overnight. But slowly, chipping away. And we got advice about word of mouth and how important word of mouth is. And we said, you know, we've only got a handful of customers. You know, nobody's talking to each other about Yuppiechef because nobody knows about it. But in the end, they did. And there was a time when my dad's neighbor in Pietermaritzburg kind of leaned over the fence to him and said, "Oh, have you heard about this company called Yuppiechef?" And it did work. Eventually, the word of mouth did spread, but it took a very long time. And one of the reasons it took a long time for us is that we didn't focus on price. Price was never the thing that we tried to differentiate on. And it is such a tempting thing online to drive sales through big discounts, because to actually overcome the inertia of shopping online, often the easiest thing to do is just to say 50% off. And that does work. It certainly does drive short-term sales, but it's very difficult to build an entire business model around trying to be the cheapest, because there will just always be the next person coming along who's also trying to get some market share and drive some sales and undercut your price. And wherever possible, we've tried to differentiate in other areas except price. And mainly for us is service and range. The service that we offer and the uniqueness of the products, or the way they're put together, or the accessibility of them. And so that's something when I talk about earlier, and I say the unique selling points, or the strategy wasn't necessarily clear up front. I think we had an idea of trying to sell hard to find products, but the idea of how important service was going to be, and how important things like gifting would be, and wedding registries, and the products that we sell needing advice in order to be sold at decent volumes, those are things that emerge. We didn't necessarily know them up front. It took 5 years before Shane and I actually took a salary from Yuppiechef. So we started in 2006, and in 2011, we were finally able to stop doing the other work that we were doing, which was mostly still working for other clients, doing various types of online and technical work for them. It just took a whole lot longer. And I'm very glad that when we started, we didn't give ourselves a 3-month runway or a 6-month runway and say, you know, by then I need to be making enough money off this business. It took us 5 years. It could be different now. I mean, obviously, online businesses, there's a lot more traction. There's a lot more people online. There's also maybe more competition, but it could be that there is a difference in starting now. But certainly, I think the lesson for us was that these things take longer than we expected. We moved to bigger warehouses. We hired more people. And in 2015, we opened a little shop from our warehouse, because people would arrive, they would drive from across town and get to it and say, I've come to buy something from you. And we say, oh, sorry, we're actually an e-commerce company. And they said, but we've come all this way. Can't you just let us buy this thing? So we opened a little store and we let people buy from us. And the amazing thing was how easy it felt. The idea of someone arriving, walking through the door, picking up a product, handing us over some money and walking out. And we looked at that through the lens of people who'd been doing e-commerce for 10 years and thought about how hard it is to convince someone about the quality of a product online and why they should buy it and that you're trustworthy, and then figuring out how to take their money from them and with all the complexities around that, and getting them to give us an address that we then are able to find later on the day that they're going to be at home. And really it was an interesting lesson in how, in how that there is not necessarily one or the other methods of retail, that sometimes what seems easy in one place is made up for in hard things in another channel. And our customers were actually seeing us as a single entity, as just Yuppiechef, the retailer, not Yuppiechef, the e-commerce company. But we would get a phone call from a customer saying, I'm in Sandton and I'm looking for your store. And don't you guys have a store in Sandton? And I was saying, no, actually, we're just an online store only. And that we could see the market was shifting towards wanting to see us as being an online and an offline company. So we started opening more stores in 2017, and we now have 7 around, mostly in Cape Town and 2 up in Johannesburg. And we see ourselves as an omnichannel retailer. We see ourselves as a retail brand that customers sometimes want to shop online while they're sitting at home under lockdown, and sometimes they want to go into a store because they want it, they need it immediately, or they want to touch and feel it, and really the interplay between those two, and an online sale with the store collection, or browsing in the store but then shipping something to their home. And we think that this is the future. This lockdown time has really given that a jolt, because obviously all of our stores are completely closed and we don't even know when they're going to open. But the view that I have for this time, which I think is shared by a lot of people, is that COVID-19 is not necessarily going to change the world as much as it is just going to accelerate the changes that were already happening. And so if your retail experience, if your physical retail experience was not up to scratch, it's going to accelerate customers rejecting that for a different type of retail. And if your online or your digital was just starting to get a bit of traction, this is going to really accelerate the customer's demand or need for that to happen. And so we still believe in omnichannel. We don't know exactly when our stores are going to come back online, but we think it's something that is going to, that is still going to be part of our future. I wanted to circle back to the 3 points that I said earlier, and just to highlight those. Firstly, we didn't think that Yuppiechef was a good idea in the beginning. I actually tried to convince Shane to go with flags rather than Yuppiechef. So the idea is less valuable than the execution. Secondly, that it took longer than we thought. There is no magic bullet. Word of mouth is great, but super slow. It took us 5 years before we were actually drawing a salary from Yuppiechef. And part of that was because we didn't choose to focus on price. So it did take longer. And then thirdly, our strategy kind of emerged over time. It was okay that I think that we didn't have a 20-page business plan knowing exactly how the market was going to respond. And it turns out that range and service really were the things that made a difference to us, but in a way, we pretty much stumbled onto it. So that is on the end of my 20 minutes. I've seen some chats and I've seen some Q&A. I'm not necessarily able to answer all of those, but I do wish you everything of the best in this time as you explore ideas for changing your business, or improving your business, starting your business. It is important that we hold that optimism at the same time as holding some fear. It's okay to fear them both. Thank you and goodbye.